have a lot of folks in our HCLC that are already engaging on water issues in a variety of ways. But we also have folks that aren't and are interested in figuring out how to start doing that, because it's a really complicated issue, as we all know.
So we're going to be having a panel discussion, and we have two speakers today. We have Ilenia, who was just elected to be a board member for the Central Arizona Water Conservation District. And she also, as she mentioned earlier, she works with Source Global as a business development manager. And we also have Janice Varela, who has a ton of experience with the water sector, and she works currently with the Pecos River Water Protection.
It is an honor to represent, my community and all communities. The Colorado River delivers water to the basin states, and here the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board oversees the CAP system, which is the Central Arizona Project, which is the 336 miles of canal systems that deliver water to agriculture, municipalities, and tribal communities. So 11 out of our 22 tribes in Arizona. Very, very important board as we're experiencing acidification and mega drought. And yeah, so this is, and also like we are the largest users of energy, because you have to imagine pushing that water uphill takes a lot of energy. So very important decisions are made on this board. We are facing unprecedented times. We're moving from tier 2 to tier 3, and we are going to experience reductions, and those will mostly impact agriculture. We know at the end of the day, agriculture and the workers there are migrant workers, are Latino families who already live in extreme poverty. And those are the communities that I work with day to day in my professional role. The colonias, which are, the unincorporated areas along the US-Mexico border, where our communities, similar to the tribes, don't have access to electricity or water infrastructure. So our technology is deployed there so they can have running water. We know that in the beginning of the pandemic, people in the Navajo Nation were dying because they didn't have water to wash their hands. So colonias, Mexican migrant workers along the border, and tribal communities live in similar situations. So going back to what I do professionally, that's what I do professionally. So although the Colorado River delivers water, and this board really is delivering water to Maricopa County, which is the 5th largest county in the country, and Pima County, that's where Tucson is, and Pinal County. So that's where, most of our population exists, in those 3 counties. And yeah, this board was established to tax and set rates. And the reason that we have to tax is because it costs $4 billion to construct the canal system CAP. So we tax because we need to pay back the federal government, similar to a mortgage, where we're still paying, an annual amount. And I think it's 2050 when we pay it off. And that all happened when we were negotiating with California. And that is one of the reasons that we are the junior rights water holders, because in order for California to agree to the legislation for the $4 billion, we had to agree to become the junior rights holders. So very important board, very important decisions that will happen. We know that acidification is permanent. We have enough water stored underground for the next 10 to 30 years, but that doesn't say much because Phoenix metro area has grown rapidly, and not that the water goes to, like, most of the water that is being used and wasted isn't as a result of development and the growth population, but more like we have a semiconducting company, the chip I think it's an $8 billion chip company coming to Arizona that's currently being built. Then we have Meta, Facebook data center being built as well. And those industries will used more water in 1 year than like development since like 1985 until now. So those are the things that that concern me, and that will waste and use water, and they're not, because of the laws and legislation, they are not like developers have to ensure that they are replenishing the water that they're using. That's part of like the current legislation that exists for development, but commercial industries like the data centers don't have any type of regulation or laws that they have to abide by. So that's a problem we're going to experience, and not really like development, but more of like the commercial companies, data centers that are going to come use up all our water. We do not govern or enact policy at all. We're just a water wholesaler body, and that's pretty much it. So our only role is to tax and to ensure the delivery of the water to those 3 areas.
I grew up swimming and enjoying the Pecos River, watching my dad fish, and it's nothing like a good crisis to get a person motivated into action. That's what happened to me. And it seems like in 91, when I started this work, up until now in 2022, been motivated by one crisis or having to deal with one crisis after another because of my position. And it's an honor to be able to represent and speak on behalf of myself and my children and my community. It all started out back then in about 91 when, we're just enjoying ourselves and, but being aware that the river did have some issues, that there was an abandoned mine up in Terrero, which is about 20 miles up the river from the village of Pecos. And we have an abandoned mill site in Pecos where the waste, where the mine waste has also been sitting for all these years. The mine was operating back in the 20s and 30s and quit operation about 1939. And we saw in my lifetime and before, orange liquid, coming into the sludge, coming into the Pecos River during runoff, running down the road from the mine piles, waste piles, and in the Molino in the village of Pecos, watching the river in the times of heavy runoff in the spring, turning orange from this mysterious waste. And that material got moved around into our forest. The Forest Service used it to surface roads leading up to the Pecos Wilderness to different campgrounds. Then it was discovered that that mine waste was releasing toxins into the air. We had the fish kill at the fish hatchery, 90,000 trout died. So people got together, became alarmed about what was going on with the river. So we had Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry come into the village and shut down the road and campgrounds. And they were open by that afternoon because of political pressure back then. And the Pecos business community did not want for us to be a Superfund site. And we are still not a Superfund site, contrary to a lot of people's thinking and belief. We have a toxic mine, but it was not a Superfund site. It was avoided because of the work and cooperation of the respondents, who are the state of New Mexico, the mining company. It was Cypress, AMAX way back in the day, and it's been changed hands many times since. And the Forest Service, the State Game and Fish Department, and then of course the citizens are concerned there. So a lot of people in the village got together and we started working with the Environment Department on a plan for the reclamation of the mine and the mill site. So that's gone on, and now 30 years later, the liner at the mill site has outlived it. It was designed for a 30-year lifespan, which is about run out right now. So we'll see what happens next. Now the state of New Mexico is responsible for that. So when that work in action, at the same time, we did have a proposed development coming into our village. We have about maybe 10,000 people in a 20-mile radius from, I would say, the greater Pecos area, which is Glorieta to Terrero and to Roe. So maybe 10 to 12,000 people that live in this area permanently. We have a lot of visitors that come in, especially in the summer, to enjoy the wilderness and our outdoor recreation opportunities, the Pecos National Historical Park. We have a lot of great opportunities here for recreationists and visitors. And so then we had a big development that was being proposed, and 500 people came out and were concerned about it. And I was one of them. And I opened my mouth at a meeting, and before you know it, I was asked to be the president of the Upper Pecos Association back then. And then we started dealing with the mine and cleanup. And then because of that, I got involved in working on, New Mexico did not have a state mining law. So I was part of a coalition that brought the 1993 state mining law into fruition. And at the same time have been and still advocating for reform of the 1872 mining law. It's absurd that in this day and age that the Forest Service has to allow the mining companies this is on forest land, on national land, to operate if they follow the procedures. Just serving on many boards throughout the years. And then I started working for the acequias. I was actually an AmeriCorps volunteer in '95, one of the first year that AmeriCorps came to life under President Clinton. And I was an AmeriCorps volunteer with 11 other communities in northern New Mexico. 4 of the 8 northern pueblos were part of this, and a lot of villages, and we'd get together, and it was just really a beautiful, overwhelming experience in my life, and still very important to me.
We hope that the state and local water leaders are consulting water experts like everybody in the Zoom room right now, because you are all the leaders for support and input for social, scientific, and policy-based determinants facing the population that water boards serve. So we want them to approach you. You know, I know you all are the experts, and this should be second nature for the state and local leaders to be able to reach out to HCLC members for advice, for support, for their expertise.
You know, water is complicated and it takes time. And we don't have a lot of minority populations that can make the time, much less understand what other people understand during that time. So I think that you can't underestimate, and there's no way to over emphasize, I guess, the need to have that relevant education and training. You know, my experience on the Buckman Direct Diversion Board here in Santa Fe is that, you know, there were times when that meeting would get very scientific-y, if you will. And, you know, there's no way that I could understand not only the chemistry and engineering behind it all, but the law that comes along with it. You know, I used to have to ask some of those board members to, you know, make it simple, because we're a public body, and folks from the public who don't understand or spend a whole lot of their lifetime working on this stuff don't go to those kinds of meetings because it's just over their head.
Thank you, Carmichael. And I couldn't agree more with that. Water and water issues are super complicated. And they're not going to get any simpler as time goes by. I mean, we're in a mega drought in the Southwest region, and you know, people are going to start fighting for whatever resources they can get their hands on, and it's going to get even more complicated.
The idea that we have a lengthy history of water management and water governance. In the manner of how I instruct it, I frame it that acequia is first and foremost a hydrology system. It's an ecological system. It's a governance system, and it's a cultural system. And I would say, you know, to build on what Carmichael had mentioned, that, you know, to the degree that we're familiar with all those different areas, the hydrology aspect is the science. And of course, it takes a lifetime to understand the complications and the formula that go with understanding those levels of STEM science. And within our cultures, we have a lot of histories, and we have a lot of understandings, a lot of folk knowledge, and a lot of scientific knowledge, because it's based on observation as well.
And thank you all for joining tonight. This has been like a really great conversation. Just amazes me at the knowledge and the caliber of people we have in this, and cross jurisdictional, cross state lines. You know, where we now have a conversation going right now with Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, which reminds me that this is why we convened the Hispanic Conservation Leadership Council to begin with. To be able to make our way into and help navigate through legislation and rules and things that govern not just water, but wildlife and habitat and everything else that we are all interested in. So again, I just thank you guys so much for being part of this amazing amazing group of people, and I encourage you to bring your friends to this group because it's just growing and getting more and more powerful as time goes on.